All right, we're live, man.
Oh, we're live.
Yeah.
Oh, it just jumps on just like that.
It's you wait and see, man. Buckle in.
Oh shit.
Let's get this bottle popped though first, right?
Hey. Boom, boom, boom.
So we've got Mark Haverty
Thank you.
from I forget what brokerage you're with.
I'm with Baemayr Realty Group. So Eric Baemayr.
Shout out to Eric Baemayr.
Eric.
How long you been with Baemayr Realty Group?
I started with believe April or May. One of
Okay.
those. I know it was close to my birthday, kind of.
So just fairly recently.
Yeah, fairly recently.
And where were you before that? I know you've
I
been
was
an
at-
agent for quite some time.
Yeah, I was with Sunshine Realty Group and Property Management with Amanda Garcia.
Okay.
I think you've met Amanda a few times.
I have.
Pretty gorgeous girl.
Yes.
But yes, I was with her for a while, and then moved over to Baemayr, and now we're popping bottles because
Without champagne glasses, I'm ashamed of myself.
Don't
I
judge.
thought we had them, and I don't know where they are, but I just realized I had
Spanish style champagne glasses is that's
well,
what we have.
this bottle is actually courtesy of Midtown Title.
Oh wow!
Midtown Title sent us this bottle to thank us for having them on the podcast. So shout out to Montana and Doug of Midtown Title. I've used them quite a few times. Fantastic title company. And if you haven't experienced what they provide, you probably should. You're missing out.
Well, champagne, of course.
Yeah, cheers.
That's a good benefit. So
See there?
cheers to everybody.
Now the weekend can start.
Yeah, champagne-y. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we drink what we got. I had a busy day today, and I had intentions of going to the liquor store because last week we had 2 different podcasts where they wanted to drink,
Uh-huh.
and we went through quite a bit of tequila.
Is that just today?
No, that was last week.
We might need to slow down a
no,
little bit.
this is
here.
my first drink of the day, so, and it's almost 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So we're almost there. So Mark, as a first-time person on the podcast, you know these podcasts evolve as you come on.
Right.
I want you to know this can't be the one and only time that you come here. It's
Well,
like working out.
I feel like this is my introduction into the world.
what it
know?
is.
A lot of people, see me out, but I don't think they really know me or know the sober me. I'm just kidding.
Well, they're gonna now.
they're gonna now barely.
Right.
So I don't. This is my first podcast, and I get an hour to talk about us. So
Well, not only that, what the whole idea behind this podcast is twofold.
right.
Number one is to have conversations about real estate to ultimately give the people who follow us and troll us and potential clients, past, future, and present,
Right.
an opportunity to really, kind of know who you are. Maybe someone says, hey, you've got to use my guy, Mark. He's the best in the business.
Yeah.
But before they call you, they might get online and start clicking away to see who you really are. And
Yeah.
They might catch these videos and be like, I like him.
It's funny that you say that. I Google every phone number that's unknown in my phone
There
before I answer it. I'm like, it's like 20 seconds your phone's ringing.
Mhm.
So before I answer the phone, I'm like Googling who is this and see if I can figure them out real fast before I answer because most of the time it's scam.
Right.
But even when I work with clients, I sometimes like cheat and Google because some of the people I've never met before
Mm-hmm.
and they haven't met me. But
Got to be careful. There's bad guys out there.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I kind of go in stalker mode, so I would hope people do the same thing with me and see like, oh wow, this guy is interesting, but I feel like my internet cadence is somewhat plastic. It's just like, oh, look at me, I'm so pretty. I would hope people think I'm pretty. Do you?
You're pretty.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
I'll
that.
validate it.
Thank you.
Good looking guy.
Thanks. But yeah, so I Google pretty much everything about a person before. Some people you can't find information about them on the internet, and so
Well, that's what we're trying to avoid here. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to know people and people want to know you. So not only do we want to get you in front of those people, but I try to make this a community thing for the real estate community, if you will, and the entrepreneurial community. Because one thing I tell agents, whether you know it or not, you're self-employed,
yeah,
right?
pretty much. Yeah.
And that resonates with a lot of other business owners, whether you're in insurance or, financial advisor. We all are doing the same thing. What are we doing? We're going after new business. We're trying to find new clients. We're trying to sell. We're trying to close.
right.
So you've got way more experience in real estate than a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these real estate topics for people to troll as far as clients, and then also for our community to kind of go, I like what Mark was saying there. Maybe I can apply this to my business.
Yeah, shout out to you for giving us a platform, even title companies, but I didn't come with champagne. I just came with my hand out. So
Next time, man, like I said, this is the first time.
Yeah.
So for the audience out there, I met Mark at a networking event. And networking events is something we talk a lot about on here because
Right.
sometimes people say networking's not for me.
Yeah.
And I met Mark at this networking event. And in addition to us connecting through business-related purposes, he also has a Doberman Pinscher.
Oh, yeah.
And I bring it up all the time. I've got a beautiful female Doberman Pinscher who is just a complete love of my life. Also, a headache.
Yeah.
She's something. And so anyone else who has a Doberman, if you know, you know.
Yeah, and it's so funny. My Doberman, so we have a chocolate lab and a Doberman. Shout out to Chatham and Winston, but Winston's the Doberman.
Slide that
And
glass over here.
he's, I wish we had like a hot person like come and pour it for us. Wouldn't that be cool? A cool asset.
We got one in the other
Oh
room.
yeah, we got my husband who is hiding in the back there from the camera. Oh, that's gonna sound bite on the table a little
It'll be
bit.
all right.
But
We'll edit that out.
yeah, my Doberman, he has this kind of asshole persona about him. Like,
Well, he's in charge of it all.
yeah, but his personality takes more after me, which makes me question, am I an asshole? But our Doberman, he forces himself, and he kind of sits in chairs like he pays bills in the house. So he has this like very like strong presence, but that's my baby. And Chatham is just like, oh, I'm just gonna sit around and have fun. But those two get along very well. Very beautiful dogs, very strong dogs. But they have their moments where I'm just like, where did you learn that? Who
Right.
taught you this? And he's very vocal. He just makes these random noises, these ranges of sounds. Kind of like Mariah Carey. He has a good
Got that
vocal.
whistle.
Yeah, I should get him into singing. That would probably be a cute thing to see. The first black Doberman to sing on microphone. It'll
You
be
could
great.
retire.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Put him on America's Got Talent.
That would be a gay dog's kind of talented dog thing to have. A singing ability to, I think I would promote that.
Right.
Definitely.
Well, I know that when we connect, so that's how we connected. And one of the things that you said the last time that I saw you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd mentioned that you were doing, you just wrapped up or were working on a commercial transaction.
Yes,
So you've been doing a lot of commercial stuff. And I know that for a lot of real estate agents, that is like a very scary thing if they've never done it before. And I kind of just wanted to pick your brain a little bit, not only for, the real estate community, but just in general. Like, what are the differences? What are some of the pitfalls? I mean, I'm sure you have learned through mistakes and wins and
Well, there is a lot of differences dealing with commercial. First off, the contract itself is not, like a 1-to-4 or a regular lease. A lease contract could be more complex. First, you start with a letter of indemnity, not a LOI, basically, and that's a constant negotiation. And you're literally negotiating everything down to the last percentage on a triple net. But on top of that, you're dealing with business owners, not home ownership.
right.
And some realtors that you cross in the industry, they have a whole different way of approaching things. And I mean, I met my few share of Karens, I
Sure.
can tell you, in the industry, because it's a whole different ball game.
What's a male Karen called?
Carl?
See, this is
I don't
something
know. That's
I didn't want to derail it, but everybody's.
Brad?
I've heard Kyle. I've heard Chad.
I've heard Chad.
I mean,
Chad.
Write in the comments. What's a? Tell me what a male Karen is for those of you that are going to listen in the comments here. We'll make a clip out of this one. I want to know what a male Karen is.
Yeah, because I mean, there's an asshole. Guys are mainly assholes most of the time. That's like a normal.
So that's like.
But a guy that's probably in his like 70s with a brim hat on or whatever, a golf hat, walking around, dictating what you have in your yard, I would say that's a male Karen, because basically at this point he has nothing else to do but what do you have in your yard?
So a Carl.
A Carl, but that seems like a very young name for somebody in their 70s. I mean,
I guess we'll see what the audience has to say.
yeah, exactly. But I don't think I've really crossed a male Karen. I've
Well, you're dealing with male Karens in commercial real estate.
yeah, they're
though.
just assholes.
Okay.
I mean, and I can put that energy right back out.
Right.
It's kind of you don't take it personal, but it is like a what you call it, a D contest of whose penis is bigger, basically. And I like playing that game. I can show mine is bigger. I have,
There it
the
is.
guts and the balls to do it. So that's one thing I learned about myself in commercial of how great I am at negotiating, which you have to do a lot of, and there's a lot of bluff in it. You wouldn't think that's a real thing. Like, why would people play games? But it's a way to get what your client wants, to get the best what they want. You kind of constantly have to play that game, and kind of know what you're talking about, because people pick up on it real fast when you don't. So when you start it out, it's a lot of faking it till you make it, and by faking it, mean you're looking up what the conversation's about and then putting that information back out there.
Do you think that there's people out there that are kind of like you said, they're playing games? Do you think they're doing it? I mean, I know people do it for the strategy behind it.
Yeah,
But
there's
do you
a
think there's
strategy.
people out there that just really just like it?
Yeah, no, it's not even necessarily that they like it. I think it's an act too.
Okay.
Like, they don't really believe the bullshit that they're putting out there.
Okay.
I mean, I cross that a lot, even in just the regular residential, where people really think they're doing, like, I'm a bulldog in the industry. And it's
Right.
like, okay, babe, calm down.
I
No, you're
hear that a
not.
lot, that exact term.
Yeah, so it's I've seen it in some people's marketing strategy, and I'm sorry if you're on my Facebook and you have that. I've judged you, trust me. Just like you probably judged me in my random post.
Right,
But
right.
the whole bulldog thing, and sometimes it's unnecessary, but some people just do it like in the random tactics. But I see it more in commercial. In a way, it's more serious than residential, because why would you want to be an asshole and then a necessary part of the transaction and just ruin it all just to show your client that you're tough? I don't
Yeah.
think that. I think that's a level of insecurity that people present when they feel like they're not knowledgeable.
Like
So
imposter syndrome.
yeah, imposter syndrome, which I'm pretty sure we've all been guilty of that, but
Sure.
manage it. I mean, get a therapist. Like, they have that out there. So
That ego's a bitch, right?
yeah, it is. You got to keep it in check sometimes. It won't work over here. But that's what I noticed. And a lot of good things about commercial too is you can take those skills that you learn and put it back into residential. I mean, it kind of opens up your brain a little bit more to know how to negotiate in a real negotiating situation. I mean, I know a lot of people in residential say, "Oh, I negotiated this 10,000 lower," when really it's the inspections and certain things that dictate that it's a method that's been done before. But with commercial, you got to be a little bit more creative
Yeah.
on what you're negotiating, and be okay to say no and keep saying no until people meet you halfway. But a lot of times it's two parties wanting to make an agreement to get the deal done. So the point is that's the end result. So anything egos and all that should be let go, so you can have a great deal to close a commercial deal and get these people in business. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree, and that's something that we all talk about is how,
Mhm.
like, at the end of the day, the client really is. It's cliche, but like, you want what's best for your client. You want them to not only get what they want as far as the deal is concerned, but
yeah.
you also want them to have a good experience. You want them to refer
Yeah.
to you. You want them to use you again and
Yeah,
say
and
good things about you.
there's been situations where it's none of my. I felt bad for the client on the other side of the transaction, because I'm representing a landlord here, and lease transactions is not as easy as is nowhere near easy like a residential lease.
Mhm.
It's extremely complex, but I felt bad in certain situations for the client that I don't represent, because the agent is just. I don't know what they're doing. I'm just like, okay. I mean,
Right.
of course, I'm not going to call their client like, "Oh, person was a bitch. Was that a Carl or a Karen?" I just mind my own business and move on. I mean, actually, my husband has witnessed conversations where it got ugly a few times, and I just sat there and I held my own. And even though I was burning inside, and I wanted to be like, first of all, you don't know who you talking to,
Right.
but I just sat there and like, wow, I kind of laughed at the situation
Mhm.
afterwards, and I'm glad I did that. And he gave me my kudos to my dog treats, and I'm like, oh, I'm a bad bitch. Okay.
So
Mhm.
about that, so
Mhm.
this is a question that I haven't got to ask yet to any other real estate agent. So you and I, we were hanging out last week for a good cause, Unite the
Uh-huh.
Fight.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
remember that night.
Okay,
I
well,
was kidding.
it was a good time.
It became a blur after a while.
And we've had Andrew Dubé on here. We've had a couple of gay
Love
real
Andrew.
estate. I fucking love him. I mean, my cologne that I wear now is because of him.
I think Andrew might think I'm a stalker, because I always pop up randomly. And he made a comment on here, and I watched it. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I watched the whole thing.
It was
he
great. He's
where
one of my favorite interviews.
Yeah, and he mentioned that people don't actually watch 50 of your videos at one time.
Right.
Andrew, I've watched all your videos
At one
multiple
time.
times at one time. So yeah, he might put a restraining
His
order.
are super entertaining, though. I mean, you got to
Yeah,
give it to them. Like, they're
it's
creative. Like,
ballsy.
they're good.
It's like it's that's what I like. You
Mhm.
know, a lot of agents talk about putting on content and stuff, but the way he does it is just raunchy and it's funny and it's you know, I've never seen it
He's just
done
being
that way.
himself.
Yeah, he's just being himself,
And he says that the main reason that he's not concerned about, as you put it, the raunchiness or whether it's controversial or not, is because he feels like he's weeding out a bunch of clients that really
that don't want to work with
wouldn't
you.
want to work with him
Yeah.
anyway.
Like, why would I work with somebody that doesn't want to work with me?
Right.
So, yeah.
It's not going to be a good transaction. Like, sure, you might get a check in the end, but like, what's that experience like? And kind of back to what we were saying about the commercial part of things. It's like, I know it's cliche, but you want your clients to have a good experience. Those of you that are buying, like I tell people, because obviously on the lender side of things, people come at me hard with like, what's the numbers? What's it going to look like? And
Right.
they never want to hear like, listen, you're going to have a horrible experience if you're going to go with this online lender. Like, it's going to be absolutely terrible. And they're like, that doesn't matter. I need to save as much money as possible. And then, you know, we follow up with all of our clients, even if they don't close with us. And a lot of them are like, man, we wish we would have used you. Like,
Right.
it would have been worth the extra like $15 a month because the rate was like a, 0.1%
And
higher.
then you send a card in the mail saying, I told you so.
Right.
And then, like, what a middle finger.
Yeah.
Do you do that?
No, never. We just call them on their birthdays and ask them how everything's going.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of clients that didn't do business with me in the first round that come back, and that's when the transaction is smooth because they trust you at that point. But
Yeah.
no, the question I wanted to ask, though, with having Andrew on, it's something I've been thinking about. And one of the things that I've identified, and I was saying this the other day, one of my other guests came on and they said, hey, I noticed that you've had like a couple of gay people on. And I'm like, yeah. And they were like, where do you find all these gay real estate agents? And I said,
Grindr.
well, when I was up in Ohio, I would work with, I had a good amount of gay agents that I would work with. And the one thing that I identified about working with both men and women is in real estate, kind of like what you talked about, the whole bulldog thing. That's how you advertise yourself and everything. Like, I think we as real estate agents or as real estate professionals, like, there's those conversations that we have where we know like maybe the buyer or the seller are getting kind of crazy. They're getting emotional and everything like that. And I have had more constructive conversations and like with the gay community where like when it comes to real estate, they don't fuck around. Like, it's like, how are we going to get this deal done? How are we going to fix this problem? Where there seems to be a little more drama from time to time in the straight community of real estate agents.
That's funny.
And you would think it would be the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Like, just on the surface of things, as a straight man, like, the cliche would be like, oh, there's got to be so much drama. No, gay real estate agents, like, they know what they want. They know how to get the deal done. And I want to know what your take on that is.
I don't know. I never looked at it that way, but
Well, you've had to have sat
Yeah.
across the table with other gay agents, right?
Yeah, but you're right. I don't think we ever had the conversation about, the drama or whatever. We may spill some tea and like, girl, did you hear so and so? But
I'm saying there's less drama.
yeah, there's less drama. That's what I'm saying. We don't really. I don't know. I never thought of it that way because we want to get paid. That's point blank period because we have things to buy.
Right.
And we like buying things and we like nice things. I think, and that the stereotypical typical thing about a gay person is they like nice things, and that can be somewhat true, but we don't want too much friction in a transaction. From my perspective, just speaking for me, it's not my business to indulge in the back and forth, the drama. My thing is wanting to get it done. If there is drama, it is exhausting.
Right.
And we have enough things that we're fighting for in our own personal lives, especially in this climate. It's just like, this is unnecessary. Let's redirect the energy. I think that's what the thing about gay male agents, we redirect a lot of energy. So, I mean, we've done that our whole life, trying to deflect from uncomfortable conversations or trying to, I guess it's rooted in our DNA to know how to make situations lighter and get business done. And then that's usually my perspective. I don't care about the rest of, the seller's thinking this way, that way. All right, well, let's get to this position. So, I mean, we're just fabulous that way in every transaction. We're just throwing rainbows on 1 to 4 residentials all the time. So, I guess that's the magic. I never thought of it that way, though. So,
I mean, I have a
mhm.
theory, but I'm not in the, it's just a theory of mine that I have nothing
Go
to
ahead.
go
Do your
on.
theory. Let's
Well,
go.
my theory is that like, coming out and experiencing something like that at what most people, it can happen at any age. I've seen
Mhm.
young guys come out, I've seen older guys come out, and that sort of situation I would feel is very dramatic
Yeah.
and difficult. It could be difficult,
Mhm.
right? Um, and I think experiencing that and then really like having the confidence now and being comfortable with who you are
Right.
and being able to be like proud. There is so much power in that and knowing who you are
Mhm.
that like little dramatic things about like who's going to cover the cost of a survey and stuff
Yeah.
like that, like you have a almost like a superpower to brush things off a little bit more when you've experienced actual like
Yeah, actual real life drama or
right.
things. What do they call me when you're two minority, like intersectionality? I'm black and I'm gay.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are mixed up in this pot.
I didn't even
That
think about the black part. Forgive me.
yeah.
Like, and
Hey, by the way, I'm black.
right, right, right.
But there's a lot of things that I deal with on a daily basis.
Right.
That sometimes most of the time I don't address it. I go home with it and I think about it and I reprocess it. And if I have a therapist, I'm like, I've been dealing with this. I don't know how I feel about that. So to get to a transaction and Cassandra's over there arguing about a $500 survey and being that bulldog, I find it very draining to the
Right.
point where it's just like, okay, so let's worry about this, or let me go ahead and let my seller know that he's going to pay for it so you can shut up.
Right.
But making it a big deal about stuff that
It's like, what are we doing?
I've heard it. Actually, now that you mentioned that, from straight agents, I do hear a lot of stories that I'm like, why haven't I dealt with that? Or why haven't I don't care about it. I don't even think about it. Moving on, because like I said, there's other bigger things in my life that kind of daunt me a little bit or, require my energy to reassess how I'm thinking about myself personally. And that's my TED Talk. I'm just kidding.
I feel terrible now. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm asking this question about the gay thing, and it sounds so fucking cliche when I say it. So I almost don't even know if I want to say it, but like I didn't even think about it. Like the black
Yeah.
thing too. I'm like,
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that. It seems like my gayness is my protection for my race in a way.
it's interesting.
If I lead with that, people, they automatically see, oh, it's a gay guy, he's fine.
Right.
But if I lead with just not saying anything or being, it's almost like when I saw this YouTube or Instagram clip where a person had to walk by on the street, and this is a straight white guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's walking by women, and he's like jogging, and then he was like, oh, I want her to make sure she knows she's safe. So he was like, oh, hey girl, like, so he kept leading with being gay just versus being a man. So a lot of times, even in business, I kind of what do you call it, unconsciously,
Subconsciously.
subconsciously, yeah, one of those consciously,
Right.
I just do it, just to let people know, hey, this is what I'm leading with right
Yeah.
now. And it makes my gayness makes people more comfortable, which is so weird. But now I'm at the point in my age or my life where I don't really care. Whatever you see, even in a business transaction, that's what you're gonna get. If I'm black as hell that day, I'm gonna be black as hell. I just listen to Bongo's Cardi B in the car, and sometimes I go to Beck, But I never really paid attention to that in business or in life until um, my relationship made me focus on that in a way, because I'm obviously in an interracial relationship,
Yep.
and you notice differences. Like, wait, these people are reacting this way to him; they don't react that way. That was a big thing when we first got married. But now I'm just like, fuck it. If you like it, like the Andrew Dubé conversation, we say, if you
Right.
don't like what you're getting, then we shouldn't work together.
Yeah.
There's no point even having a conversation. You don't have to like me. You don't have to be friends with me. So just move.
Yeah. No,
that
I
was
like
my
it.
dream girl's voice, but it didn't work. Kind of went out. Now
That's why you have to come back. You work on that.
Yeah, work on it. I'll work on it in the shower. I did my vocal training this morning.
One of the things I always ask everyone who's on here, because again, I try to keep it a little entrepreneurial, is like
Mm-hmm.
new business. If we don't have it, we're dying, right? Anything you're doing right now, because I am running into agents on a regular basis that are like, how are you doing? How are you getting clients? Like anything that you're doing right now that's worth talking about, that it's working for you as far as new business outside of just, working your sphere and anything like that. Is there any marketing material? Is there any events that you've been doing?
Well, I've been honing in more on how I'm going to deliver myself next year. I think everybody's pretty much slow right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
I would
people,
agree.
a lot of people are taking it hard. I mean, I
Slower
hear it
than
a
you
lot.
were a year ago. I mean,
they're
I
like,
think it's
"Oh,"
inevitable.
they're kind of stuck in that depression. But I look at this as a moment, and all agents, I believe, should look at this too. When it's slow, find something to reinvent yourself with.
Okay.
Reinvent the wheel. And I notice every year it happens this way. This year is a little bit more slower than usual. But find a new way to rebrand yourself or enhance something that you already have. So that's what I'm doing personally.
Like coming on this podcast.
Yeah, like coming on this podcast. Like that's the first thing. But finding just new ways to make your business better. Because every time I do that at this time of year, it never fails. There was one point in the year where I couldn't understand why I was doing that. So it kind of led almost to depression. And then I'm like, after I got out of that, I said, no, ma'am, no ham, no turkey. I'm not doing that anymore. So I look at it as this time, and the way I'm developing my business is figuring out why am I doing this, and what do I look like doing it, and putting that together and implementing that in my business plan. So as far as working with clients, I'm reaching out to people that I've really enjoyed working with, because before I left for Massachusetts, which was a few weeks ago, I was like going hard. I mean, and it was a lot of leases too. I was closing a ton of leases in like 1 month, which a lot of agents, believe it or not, are not really, they can juggle that. But so I just focused on what I can do right now, and just focus on myself personally of how to rebrand myself. Did that answer your question? I don't think I did.
No, I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's really just about figuring out ways that you're going to be able to showcase yourself to the people who you really want to work with.
Right.
You bringing up, clients that you had good experiences with, and I would envision that's maybe even vendors that you had good experiences with.
Right, exactly. Like coming
Cultivating
onto
those-
their podcast.
Cultivating those relationships so that when the tides turn, you're locked and loaded.
Yeah, so that I know a lot of agents may bring it like, oh, I'm, calling my sphere or doing something, but a lot of this business, since you're working for yourself, I believe it starts from a foundation of who you actually are. And when you focus on that, you get better and bigger in your business once you really find out your why. So that is a business strategy that I've been working on, or continue to work on to the end of this year. And in January, it's going to be pop, pop, pop.
And I think it's safe to say you always have to be working on that.
Yeah, you should.
This business is always changing.
And you have to have yourself grounded and mentally stable in order to continue to work in this business, because sometimes it can be a mental strain on you. Working with so many people, different personalities, different energies, different couples, and you don't get to think about yourself sometimes. And when you finally do get to think about it, it's too late. Something's wrong with you. You're breaking down crying, or you went through 2 bottles of wine, 2 bottles of wine in one day, and you're like, what is wrong with me? And the next, you're like projecting that energy out, and then now you're back to square one. Business is going well, but you personally, you're not going well.
I think that's something that a lot of real estate agents, or better yet, anyone in this any entrepreneur could resonate with. I mean, you got to be good, with yourself. It's one thing to be good with business, and it's a balancing act. And I think going back to Andrew, not to just kiss Andrew's ass all day, but like that's kind of what he's doing with his business, where he's like, I'm not going to get to this headspace, even if there is like a big dollar or big price tag that comes with it.
Yeah.
So I think, and again, I've also run into agents that are the exact opposite, where, they're like, so here's what I want to do. I'm going to be a life coach, real estate agent that's going to focus on, mental wellness and this and that. And it's like, how many transactions did you close this year? Like 2.
2, yeah.
Like, okay.
Oh, do you really need that,
like,
sir?
you're way too far
Are you
this
sure
way.
about that?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, probably bad in bed, too.
Maybe they're really good in bed. That's why they're so bad at real estate.
I don't think those two. If you're bad in bed, you cannot possibly be good at real estate. I don't know. I mean,
yeah. I mean, well, let's add that.
I don't
one.
know. I haven't
That's
had
that in the comments.
what do you call it? I haven't done a study. So, like, are you good at real estate?
We'll let the audience decide.
Yeah. That would be a good poll, I think.
Well, so you kind of mentioned that, you've talked to clients that you liked working with and everything. And I asked this question to a lot of people, and then I preface it with like, I know that you probably have more than one type of client that you enjoy working with, but, magic wand, what's like your ideal client? Is it buy side? Is it sales side? Is it a couple? Is it just single person? Is it young? Is it old? Can you kind of give me your avatar, is what we call it?
Uh, the clients I've had, they it's all over. I mean, they
But what's
come
your
from,
if
what's
you
my
could turn them
favorite?
all into, and there's no wrong answer, right? Like, I'll give you mine. I personally, and it sounds creepy when I say it, but I'll explain why. I personally
Lord.
like dealing with first-time home buyers
Mhm.
that are women that are under the age of 40, and the reason for that being is because I find that women, they really want to know like the process. They ask
Mhm.
a ton of questions, and they're good questions.
Yeah.
So I never feel like, because the truth is like when I feel like I'm getting into mansplain mode,
Uh-huh.
I only get checked by other men for mansplaining.
Really?
Yes, and then they're the ones that always, they're like halfway through the process when I'll be in the middle of like explaining the process of like, listen, buddy, I know. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And we move forward, and then all of a sudden I get a phone call a week later, and they're like, how come blah 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 blah? It's like, I tried to explain it to you, but
You didn't let me mansplain.
or you didn't let me mansplain.
Yeah.
Whereas with women, they're like, hey, they want the hand holding. I talk a lot, if you
Mhm.
hadn't noticed. And, I really get into every single detail. They ask good questions, and then we knock everything out up front, and it's always a really good experience.
Yeah.
So, single, she doesn't have to be single, but like if the woman's running the house type of deal, like
Mhm.
female, under 40, first time home buyer, again, that's not all I want to work with, but there's my avatar.
Mine is not necessarily more of an age and a gender. It's more of the person themselves. Like, I like working with clients that have a rich story.
Okay.
And by that, I mean they were a fighter jet pilot, or they're children of celebrities or stuff like that.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't know, because I find their stories more interesting, and I find them a little bit more sure of themselves because they lived life.
Right on.
And I've had a few clients that fall in a lot of those categories, and I did not know that. Remember, we were talking about Googling people.
Mhm.
Some of these people I've never Googled, and then it comes to find out when we meet face to face, and I'm like, oh, I know this person from somewhere. I know this person, and why? And then you listen to their story, and you're like, oh, how did I not know that? But I like working with people with rich stories, because a lot comes with that kind of culture and the way they buy or the way they deliver things. They're, like I said, they're more sure.
Mhm.
They're very specific in what they want, and they find things more important outside of just this transaction. So they're easy. Some reason they're easier to make decisions that way. From my experience, those type of people have been my favorite.
So like confidence.
Confidence, yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. See,
So-
I gave this whole damn monologue.
Well, I mean, confidence comes with experience, and
Mhm.
rich stories, as you put it. So I can see that. So you
Yeah.
like dealing with some people who are confident and knowing what they want, knowing
Yeah,
what
I
they want to
love
buy.
that's even just in regular life, but in business, I like confident people. Like when we bought our first home, not saying I would want people that are like us. We, Holly, our realtor at the time, put us on the MLS. It took us one day. We went out one day. We made a decision that day. We went under contract that day too. So when we made our decision on that house, we were very confident, and we still love that house to this day. It's just been perfect.
Or even somebody who just says, hey, here's what I'm looking for. And
Yeah.
like, it's your job to go out and get it. I always give the food analogy. I mean,
Yeah.
you're basically looking for the client that's in, as
That
a
is
relation.
quick decision
Right,
maker,
in a
but
relationship analogy, it's like, what would you like for dinner? And so when I say, I don't have to, and I'm like, here's what I want for dinner, you're like, thank you, opposed
Yeah.
to me being like, I'm down for whatever. And you're
Yeah.
like, how about pizza? I'm like, nah, not pizza.
Yeah. Well, funny story. I've kind of like that because Vincent, he's the main one to cook.
You could
but
be like that, but you don't want your clients
no,
like that.
let me be me, but you better make a quick decision.
Right.
Like, but really, even personally, I'm like that. I make decisions very fast. But I like my clients to be like that too. So as far as gender and anything else of that nature, that or age, that doesn't matter to me more than a person being so confident. And you would be surprised how many people are not like that.
Oh,
I mean, well,
I'm not.
Yeah, it's even. It doesn't matter your so wherever how much money you make. It doesn't matter. but a lot of people are unconfident in a lot of they just don't know how to make decisions. And not saying that people that don't, it irritates me, but it does get exhausting after a while because sometimes they change their mind 3 weeks later, and then you're showing them more homes. So I find that kind of irritating and a waste of my time.
Well, let's unpack that because that's something that I wanted to talk a little bit about. That
Now
we
we're in
haven't
therapy.
covered.
Let's unpack it.
Well, what I mean by
Yeah.
unpacking it is like, so what are your thoughts on the fact that like you have a client that calls you up, says, Mark, I want to work with you. I saw you on the podcast. I feel like I just feel like I know you. I'm looking to buy in Austin. And they're like, meet me at this house. I want to see a couple properties. And this person basically for the next 30 days just runs you ragged, right? And you know that while you're doing all of this, spending all of your time, spending money on gas, looking up properties, sending over listings and all this other stuff, like you're not making one penny.
Right.
Right? My first question is do you think that the general public knows that?
I feel like I need a drink for that.
Do you feel the general public knows that you are working for free until a deal closes, number one? And number two, if they do know that, how do people who do that sleep at night?
I don't think the general public knows that because I do have agents sometimes feel that, which I do like this, those confident ones, they feel like they need to pay me somehow, even outside the transaction itself. Like, oh, how can we owe you?
You're talking about clients.
Yeah, clients.
Okay.
So the general public, I don't think they know how the structure works, that we're working for free up until we get paid. And honestly, going back to your
Let me
scenario-
stop you there. So how do you think the general public thinks you get paid?
They think we get paid too much.
But how do they think you get paid?
Each person, I don't know. I don't know where
Do
they
you
get
think it's
their-
like an out of sight, out of mind type of thing?
Yeah,
like
I
they
don't- I
almost
think
don't want to know?
Yeah, they don't want to know, and I don't think they care.
So now you're answering my second
Yeah.
part. How do they sleep at night?
Yeah, I don't think they care.
They just don't care.
I don't think the general public cares, but the people that are aware, that do care, they want to go above and beyond to make sure you are compensated. And going back to your scenario of somebody reaches out to me and then we're doing this for 30 days and getting the runaround, what I've learned is I'm probably not doing my job correctly. So say if this guy is pre-approved or gal or whatever, and they have everything together, they just can't make a decision. I can be confident. This is where I need to be confident enough to help narrow their mind and make a decision. You know, do you want to do this? When do you want to do it? Be a little bit more specific in what you need. Let's narrow this down. It's kind of like, what do you call those people with the whips and the dominatrix in the bedroom? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
S&M.
Yeah,
That's
sadism and masochism.
Yeah. So that's what.
You become the sadist or the masochist.
Oh, see, is that the one that
The sadist would be the one with the whip.
That's one thing I learned about myself in this business,
Okay.
especially in commercial. I'm the
the
one.
sadist.
I'm the one with the whip.
Okay.
And when clients are not narrowed, I think one of my first clients, when I first started real estate, they were irritating me so much because he was moving around everywhere, and wasn't making a decision. When I thought we made a decision, he would switch it up. And then all of a sudden, this person came out of me and was like, whoosh, "You've been a bad boy.
And
You need to make a decision very fast."
did it work?
It did work.
Okay.
Actually, I told, because he kind of went behind me on something, and I was like, "Don't you do that?" And then we became friends after that. And I think that sense of control is you do have to kind of bring the person in to let them know, hey, not that they're wasting your time, but you need to know how to make a decision very fast if you're going to do this. If you don't do it by this time, this is what you're going to miss out on.
Especially in certain markets.
Especially in certain markets, especially at the time when I started, it was just kind of like, you need to figure this out. So in a way, that's how I would handle the situation now, be a little bit more assertive.
When you go through those situations and really kind of have that like talk, if you will, almost like that counseling session. And maybe you don't know the answer to this because this is probably pretty deep and maybe you've thought about it, maybe you haven't. But when you uncover what the real hang up is it, number one, is it typically something that is a hang up that you expected? And then number two, like what is the typical hang up?
It's usually something so weird. I mean, people have their things that they won't make a decision on, but the hang-ups could be something as simple as something they didn't tell you, like, oh, I wasn't too sure about that back door not closing correctly. And you're like, are you fucking kidding me?
I'll buy you a new door.
Do you
A
want me to
brand
buy,
new
like,
door.
at this? Sometimes deals are like that. It's like
Right?
I don't just close this shit and then I'll buy you whatever.
Buy
Because
you a
at this
brand
point,
new door.
I want this done. But because you don't want to ruin that relationship, you want them to refer you to somebody else. But it's something that's just as simple as things that you don't even think about yourself. I mean, I do have my personal things. I cannot stay in one house that has a sign of a cockroach.
Right.
If there's a sign, and I've just worked recently with clients that they wanted to be sure that not one, and we live in Texas, you get those like palmetto bugs in the rain.
They get pretty big.
I related to that. I kind of empathize with that. So it's that one small thing. Up until when we were about to close, they asked that question. And this was actually, at least, it was a very expensive one too. They asked that question the last minute after we were about to get the lease signed. And then the owner responded, yes, we get them sometimes. And they said, no, we don't want the house anymore.
Wow.
I wasn't pissed because I would ask that.
See, I would have been like, I'm going to hire you the most expensive exterminator that on the planet.
I'll come and kill the bitches if you want me to.
We'll do a 1-year contract. And then
so sometimes it's things that are so small, but it's big to them. But
do you think it's underlying issues that maybe you're not aware of, or do you really think it is something that's just so small that's big to them?
Most of the time it's something that's so small to me, but it's really big to them, but it's still... Even an average person would say it's small, but that's one thing about this, man. You learn about people in ways that you realize, wow, I didn't know you. Not saying they have a problem. It's just more of, wow, that's really big to you.
Yeah.
But okay, so if we can switch that up and close it somewhere else, I'll pay attention to that next time. But next time, let me know that so we can go ahead and get it done. So in a way, you're kind of reeling them in, but without scaring them. So every time I've run into that, it's been something so small to me that I had to adapt and act like, oh, of course, I'll fix that for you. But
you just struck a nerve with me. I have a story about.
I'm sorry.
No, I have a story about something like that, and I think about this in, we're salespeople. Let's just keep it real, right? You're selling homes. Yeah. I'm selling home loans. We can argue that people buy, but we also sell. And one of the things that I think about was about 5 years ago, I decided I wanted to go to the chiropractor, right? And the reason I wanted to go to the chiropractor was because at the time I was working out like 4 or 5 days a week. I was really focused on my physical fitness, and I was fearful of the possibility that I might get injured while working out so much. I was getting a little older. So I went to the chiropractor, and he was like, why are you here? And I said, he's like, where's your pain, right? And I said, well, I actually don't have any pain. I just think it's important for preventative maintenance for me to come in here and, kind of get what do they call adjusted because I'm in the gym a lot and I don't want to get injured. And he looked at me and said, that's amazing. And I said, well, what's the big deal? He goes, nobody comes in here and does that. And I wish that they did. And he goes, most people come in here and they're like, oh, I've got lower back pain or I've got neck pain or whatever. I want you to fix it. And I'll ask them, why didn't you come in earlier?
Yeah.
And everyone has the same response. Do you know what that response is?
I didn't.
I have a high pain tolerance.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Well, I have a high pain tolerance. And now the pain is so bad that I can't deal with it anymore. And I'm here to see you. And the chiropractor looks at me and goes, Matt, do you know how they measure pain? And I said, I have no idea. He goes, there is no medical measurement for pain.
Yeah, because what is high tolerance for pain?
Exactly.
What is that?
Exactly.
Because I can have something on my finger so small, and I can't tolerate it, but be sore over here, and I'm like, oh, I can deal with that. But what is high?
Or there's somebody, you could go into the hospital with a broken pinky, about to pass out, and a guy can come in with a gunshot wound, chilling.
He's like, oh yeah, I'm just chilling.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no way medically, not
measure.
medically, but just like scientifically to measure pain.
Right.
And I looked back at him, and I don't know what came over me. I felt like I, was being real trippy, and I was like, whoa, that right there is an amazing analogy for the way people feel.
Yeah.
In regards to like emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've talked to people who have come from hard roads that, maybe had divorced parents, maybe had a parent die, I mean, there's horrible things that happen in the world. Maybe been a victim of sexual abuse and things like that.
Yeah.
And is it arguable that they have a higher pain tolerance?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, not,
I don't
yeah,
know.
we don't
I
know
don't
that.
know. And then I've seen people who, break down and hell have committed suicide because they didn't get to Harvard.
Right, exactly.
And they grew up with the silver spoon and, had two parents and, and Clarence's parents had a real nice marriage.
There's no measurement for those, like, it's different strokes, different folks.
So to your point,
Yeah.
when we talk about little things that seem very, very big to them,
Mm-hmm.
I just went, yeah.
I run into it so many times, and usually it can ruin a transaction, or it can just make me think like maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental because I have my things, which I'm not a picky person. The only thing I don't like is beets and roaches, and then
Right.
I think my husband sometimes sneaks.
I hate beets.
Thank you. I mean,
and
he loves a good beet.
And Ina loves beets. She's
Wait, that
she's from
doesn't sound
Russia.
Right. He loves that too. But
Right,
we're
right.
talking about the vegetables.
The vegetables here.
for
the
the
root
kids out
vegetable.
there. Vegetables.
Right.
He loves a good
Yes. Yes. Beets.
beets.
But yeah, man, I think about that a lot. When somebody kind of says things to me like, my initial reaction sometimes when I hear, whether it's the housewife that's like, oh my gosh, I'm just feeling so down lately.
So down.
And I'm thinking like, bitch, there's people getting bombed over in the Middle East right now.
Really,
Like,
you're having a bad day.
and you're having a bad day. But then I'm like, you know what?
It's
Pain
kinda,
tolerance.
It's kind of like, and I go in these rabbit holes on the internet where I watch. Oh, my country accent just came out. I said "were."
There it is.
Hickory, shout out to y'all. But where they are in the fast food restaurant and they are upset about a $2 sandwich and
Right.
they like get into the fights and stuff. Now that I can never understand, but to think that it's something in the food. Because you
Maybe.
never see that at any other restaurant that's like a True Foods or.
Well, somebody who's eating at a restaurant like that on the regular is probably not living in a situation overall. That
Yeah,
is like,
right. It's weird, but
there's probably
those
deeper
kind of
things
small
going
things I
on.
think those people should like. It's like road rage. I don't understand road rage. Never had it. I'm very critical of other drivers because I think I drive.
You don't want to die,
Yeah, I just don't want to die.
right?
But it also that seems very impossible because people drive crazy here. But small things to me, I have pet peeves,
Mhm.
but they're my pet peeves. But when you're dealing with in business, when you're dealing with people's homes, I can understand why they want it to be perfect. But even if you get a new build, it's not going to be a perfect situation. You kind of have to make it or live with it.
Wait, so you mean to tell me a brand new home isn't going to just be no
No,
problems?
it's not. It's sometimes there's always problems in a new home.
Can you elaborate on that? Because I can't tell you how many times people have told me, you know what, I just want to buy a new home because I don't want to deal with any problems.
Yeah, unless you are worried about previous ghosts that lived in there. Some people have that thing where they, when you get a resale home, that there's other spirits or something like that. But with a new build, you have to get an inspection. Because something may not be hooked up correctly. The electricity there could be something wrong with that.
Do you have any new build horror stories?
Not me personally. I don't
Okay.
have any. I'm pretty sure I've seen a lot of them where people say that something was crooked. Or you can obviously tell that there was a poor job
Mm-hmm.
done to it, or they discover it later, like when they
Right.
peel back something and want to change the floor, and they like discover that where all these beer bottles come from, or why is there a condom under this carpet? Yeah, it's like, well, bad things happen
In
that's not
vacant
really-
homes?
Yeah, in
Not
vacant
bad
ho-
things,
yeah.
but scandalous things happen in vacant
Scandalous
homes.
things. That home you lived in could have had a few hookups, but
Right.
oh god, but people, you have to get an inspection. I would expect a person to get an inspection for a new build because it's just those things can happen to any home. Just because it's new doesn't mean the shoe works properly for you at that moment. So
Right.
you should run in them first. But surprisingly, I don't know why people think new builds function that way, but you would always want to. I don't think the builders, if you go into a builder, would necessarily encourage it all the time. They don't even bring it up. But I think that's the point of having a real estate agent in a new build situation because they will
Wait a minute.
encourage
Wait a minute. So I just don't go to the spec home and talk to the girl that's at the desk and use her.
Oh,
Won't that
they want to get that closing.
won't that save me money?
Not necessarily because it's going to cost you more in the long run.
How?
I mean, there actually is a horror story that I heard somebody that they moved in a new build in Baemayr, and I forgot who told me this, but they moved in a new build in Baemayr, and then the foundation, because Baemayr on that side of town, you deal with a lot of foundational issues.
Yeah, east side, yeah.
Because it's just a lot of clay down there. But the house, they just moved in, and the foundation started messing up, especially in the summertime. This heat wave that we just had, that was a bitch.
It was crazy, man.
It was so hot.
It's the hottest since I've been here.
Yeah, like, but anyways, so they started having that issue, and then I don't believe that was covered under warranty or something. So they have this house with a major foundation issues where something like it's dramatic.
And that's like 20, 30K to fix.
So yeah, you may have saved money by moving to Baemayr and then
not using an agent.
Yeah, was it Baemayr or Bastrop? No, this is actually Bastrop.
Okay.
Off of 71. So they had all these issues.
You better giddy up, man. I can't just leave an unopened bottle.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Let's
Fill
go.
me up.
Yeah, man.
So there are new build horror stories. There are some great new build home builders out there that really love working with the agents, but I can understand why some probably don't, because some agents don't know what they're
One more time.
what they're talking about. Or
I guess what I'm trying to do is dispel the myth that I hear from certain buyers that they feel like it would maybe be best practices to cut out the buyer's agent on a new build because they can just deal with the builder directly, and that's going to save them money.
I don't get that that statement because they're not necessarily paying them at all.
Well, and I think also, what kind of upgrades could you have negotiated on your own?
Yeah.
What things in the contract are you not digesting correctly?
Well, the great thing is that I've noticed like I said, there's some builders that really still give you the upgrades and the buy down credits right now, and a lot of things that I've noticed.
They're thirsty.
Yeah, they want the business, but
Right.
in 2021 they were like, no agents, But there's still the certain builders did have, and they still do have integrity, and knowing that this is just a transaction that the agent's in that we're going to pay for, but we also are looking out for the person that's going to live in our homes to continue to have that relationship. So there's builders that know how to, because they have enough money to do that,
right?
That can balance out the two. So that's what I've
Well,
learned.
they have enough of your money.
Yeah.
The
so
equity in the property.
I think it depends on the builder, but I think having an agent is important. A smart agent that specializes in new builds and knows how to get you to ask the right questions, understand what you need in that particular transaction. And if you're looking for a new build anytime soon, please reach out to me.
There it is.
Was that a pitch?
That's a plug.
That's like
a
an
plug.
elevator pitch.
No, it was good. It was good.
But no, seriously. I mean, there's certain things in real estate that I won't even touch because I don't have quite the knowledge, and I do not like telling somebody wrong information.
But you know who to send them to.
Yeah, or I know who to ask the question if I can handle it. Like there was a point in my career where I did not understand floodplain. The 100-year flood. I did not.
Okay.
And I think I did and we don't usually, they encourage realtors not to touch that information because that's not your but we have to deal with that. We should know surface information.
Sure.
And I didn't even know how to respond to the surface information.
Yeah, that's big on my end.
And so luckily I had a class because I do a lot of real estate classes. I used to, like a ton. I had a survey, 100. We talk about floodplains in that same class, and I had so many questions.
Well, let's talk about it for the audience because this is a topic I've never talked about in almost 50 podcasts. So
yeah, well, it's so weird. People think that floodplains, that it's just like you're next to a lake. They believe that that's what it's all about. You're next to a lake or something like that, and you can build. Let's go back on new builds. You can build a house with no slabs under it. Just keep it that way. Well, basically, in certain situations, just because you're not near a body of water, like when we had that flooding issue in 2015, was that 2015?
Like over in Onion Creek.
Places that never flooded, probably in a while or before, started flooding.
Yep.
And I think that was Onion Creek was the main.
That's what I just said. It was Onion Creek.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, say that.
On the east side there.
In a lot of areas. I mean, there's a part in our yard, in our back part of our yard, which is in the floodplain, but our house itself is not. But the slab is basically holding it higher to
Mhm.
not be impacted by that floodplain. And I never understood that even when we bought the house, why the house was lifted the way it was.
Mhm.
But now I understand it. But especially when it comes to mortgage, that's very important.
Well,
But
yeah, we care because we want to make sure that if you are in a floodplain that's under 100 years, that you carry an insurance for it.
right.
And then people fight us tooth and nail for it. And it's one of the things that's like super interesting to me because it reminds me of septic inspections.
Yeah, which I've learned a lot about the last year.
Well, out here in Texas, I'm originally from Ohio, and you got to be out in the sticks in Ohio to have a septic system. So we don't see as much of it as I do out here. And I can't tell you how many times, and it's not like a crazy number, but it's crazy when it happens, where people fight tooth and nail over like septic tests and water tests and who's going to pay for them and all of this. And they're like, this is ridiculous. And then all of a sudden we find out that there's like E. coli in the water.
Right, exactly.
And they're literally drinking their shitty water, like literally their shitty water. And then, here they're all bitching about who's going to pay for it and how much it's bullshit. Because the lender, me, I'm the bad guy. We're requiring it. And then all of a sudden it's like, is somebody going to apologize to me?
Yeah.
Right?
No, they're not.
Right. No. It's like, I just saved you from literally drinking poop.
Yeah, that's the most important thing to me too, especially when it
Not
comes
drinking
to
poop?
septics.
Yeah.
No, not drinking. I don't. Yeah. Oh my God. Speaking of that, like, so plumbing issues are a big thing here, especially with septics, but regular piping,
Mhm.
pipes, PVC pipes, especially when we had the heat. We just had an issue.
Yeah, these
I
water
learned
tests,
so
like-
much from my own house on how to deal with other people's homes all
Mhm.
the time. We had an issue where the ground was just moving like this, and there was a plant up there, and this PVC pipe somehow split open, and 8 gallons per minute of water was coming out within 8 hours, and our bill jumped to like $600.
Yeah, no, I bet.
But what I
Easily.
learned about that, because a lot of maintenance people come up to our house for plumbing, he was telling me the reason why this is what's happening. This has actually been happening a lot. But I take that knowledge and take it right back into all of a sudden situations come up in my transactions. I'm like, oh, well, this is weird. So why am I the dummy on these people's homes? But we had a septic thing where I sold a home for one of my very interesting clients who I fell in love with. They're like this very far right. He had a "Let's Go Brendan" sign in front of his house.
Of course he did.
And he said, "You think I could keep it right there?" And I said, "No, you can't."
That is not going to help the sale of
yeah,
your property, sir.
It shows you how different my clientele is, but I really love that guy.
Because he was
but,
confident.
He was very confident, and he
You
was
love
very
confident
sure.
buyers and sellers.
I fell in love with him as a person.
I feel like we through conversation have just identified who your ideal client is.
Yeah, and I never even thought of it that way
Yeah.
until you brought it up. But I fell in love with him, and people expect people like me and him not to even get along.
Right.
And that I love that guy. But anyway, so he had a septic tank, which he does a lot of. He built this house with his own hands because his previous home, burned down in the Bastrop fires. So everything he has is like septic. So we had people were asking us during that, the buyers, they were asking, when's the last inspection? Well, we had he's this handy guy who does all this himself.
Right.
So at the end of the day, somehow the buyers end up paying for the inspection, but he was not going to do that. But he was very confident
Yep.
in knowing that I don't need to pay for that because I know how this house works. He set it up perfectly fine. And from my understanding, because I know their neighbor, because she was how the neighbor referred me to that particular client. She's like, no, they love the house. The septic is working fine and everything's great. But one of our friends, they had septic too. I'd never heard so many septic stories until I moved to Austin, Texas.
Same.
It's just crazy, but you have to know how it works.
Well, I think the reason, and I could be totally wrong, and I've been wrong a couple times on this podcast, and then people just freaking roast me. But I think the reason why you run into so many septic systems in Austin is because a lot of, the entire city for the most part is built on a bedrock of limestone.
Yeah.
And so limestone is very difficult to dig and drill
Penetrate.
into and everything. Yeah, exactly. And so therefore it is expensive. We have city plumbing and everything in the city, but once you get slightly out of the city, people typically start with septic because it's just way more cost effective.
Yeah.
And septic isn't.
By the way, the water here fucking sucks.
It's terrible.
I'm
Where are you from originally again?
I was raised in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Originally from Hickory, water problems weren't really a big thing.
I mean, I'm in Cleveland, right on the Great
Shout out to
Lakes.
Duke Energy. I'm
Yeah,
just
there
kidding.
you go.
But I don't.
Great Lakes, we have tons of water, and like you can literally drink water from the faucet, and it is
Yeah.
delicious. And I came down here, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Mussels in the water. I was like, okay, mussels. Was it zebra mussels?
Well,
one time?
yeah, the zebra mussels. We have those up in Ohio too. Believe it or not,
Dogs dying from jumping in the lake. Like
that doesn't happen in Ohio.
my dogs love. Well, one of them, the chocolate lab, loves to swim.
Hmm.
But Austin, it was so funny when people tell me that just moved here. They're like, oh, what's so great about Austin? I'm like, there's amazing things. There's da 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 da. And then when they want to know the cons, I'm like, the water fucking sucks here.
The water is. I
Do
mean,
not drink the water. Don't bathe in it. I'm just kidding.
so I went down this rabbit hole of buying like this whole in-house water system, and I got like 3 quotes on it and everything like that.
soft water.
Well, yeah, just like and so I went down and I'm like, because the only reason I was going to do it was because I like to drink water. I really do enjoy water. Like
Yeah.
it's like what I don't drink sodas or soft drinks. I mean, I drink water, coffee, or alcohol. That's
Yeah.
it. And so I was like, all right, the water here sucks. So instead of just filling my refrigerator with tons of plastic bottles of water, I'm like, I need to get a filtration system. Little did I know that these filtration systems literally can cost as low as like $6,000, as high as like $15,000. I'm like, this is absolutely,
Especially in this market, they're probably like, oh, we're gonna hike this up.
yeah.
all
I'm
the
like,
way.
this is ludicrous. Like how is this even a thing? And so I started I did way too much research on this. So the main way they're able to sell it is that the water down here is so hard because it's so full of sediment
Yeah.
that like your faucets, your appliances, all of the things, like they basically end up gumming up and breaking down like way faster than they would if you had like soft water. So I guess there's a value add in that.
I never really appreciated the difference of good quality water until I moved here.
Right.
And like even drinking certain water bottle brands, I'm like, oh, that's not good water. But I can tell when I drink something out of the faucet or if it came out of the faucet, because next I'm like, oh my God, I'm sick. I
Yeah,
feel
it's
nauseous.
I know what you
Yeah.
mean. But so what I ended up doing was, after doing all of this research, and I'm thinking like, okay, if I'm going to spend like $15,000 on a water softening system, even if all of my appliances like take a shit like 3 or 4 years earlier, I
Mhm.
just don't see how this is cost effective when really all I want is good drinking water.
Right.
And then I found out all you got to do is get a really high rated refrigerator with a good filtration system.
Mm-hmm.
You can get like a nice refrigerator with a good filtration system for like $1,500. So we had like a good refrigerator
From Home
already.
Depot.
I just swapped it out. So there's
they have
my.
some badass refrigerator. See, I'm at that age where I love Home Depot.
We're getting old, man. Who doesn't?
Oh my God, I love Home Depot.
Same.
And I just go there and put my basketball shorts on with not any underwear on and a t-shirt with my brim low, and I just look at the refrigerators and the plants.
Do you
and
like Home Depot or Lowe's better?
I never really go into Lowe's. We're Home
I-
Depot members or whatever
I
you
like
call that.
Home Depot better, but I have a Lowe's closer to me, so I find myself when you're in that frustrated moment where
Yeah.
you need something because you already bought all the shit, and you're like, God damn it, I forgot that one
Yeah.
thing. I go into both, but I like Home Depot better.
Yeah, Lowe's reminds me the face of it. I think of Walmart. It's just that blue,
Yeah.
yucky face. Home Depot seems more like, oh, this is. Home
You can do
Depot.
it. They can help.
Yeah, it's just something about Home Depot I love so much. Like I spend a lot of time in there.
I get it.
We just got our floors done, so we've used them for certain parts of our floors. But their refrigerators and their plants, seasonal plants that they have, I could sit in there all day and just like, oh my God, I just love it. That's how I know I was getting older when we saw a washer and dryer and we fell in love with it.
I get it.
And I'm like, oh, I'm getting older. Because I love these things.
Same.
But so that's my favorite thing. But there was a point I feel like I just sidetracked you off of your point.
Well, it all started with the 100-year floodplain.
Oh,
See how
yeah.
good I am at this? So
now we're
to-
talking about refrigerators.
right, but we went from 100-year floodplain to septic systems to water to refrigerators, but now we're going to bring it back to 100-year floodplains because I do want the audience to know about this, and I'm gonna bust this out real quick because can you believe we've already been on for an hour and 10 minutes?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And I feel terrible for your husband who's just kind of hanging, and I have 2 additional questions that I have for you,
Mhm.
and then we just got to book you back on, man. I
Oh
mean,
my God,
this
yeah.
this is natural, right?
Thank you.
So 100-year floodplain, the way that everything is done, it's actually done by FEMA,
Mm-hmm.
right? So FEMA is the one that rates all of this, and they base it on we have 100-year floodplains, we got 50-year floodplains. I believe it goes all the way up to 200 years,
Yeah.
and obviously
500, right?
it gets up there.
Yeah, I
It
don't know
gets
where
up
they get
there.
the 500 from.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know if it goes that far,
like, who
but
was
maybe
there 500 years ago?
I don't know. I'm sure through like radiocarbon dating or something like that, they could figure out if there was a flood.
He's so smart.
Yeah, so they basically determine, yeah, okay, it hasn't flooded here in 50 years. Well, guess what? 60 years ago, it did.
Mhm.
And when it did, your house was underwater,
Yeah.
right? And we hope that it's not going to happen for another 60 years because, you get these people who are like, I'm 50 years old. If this thing floods 50 years from now, I'll be dead. It's like, that's great. Well, what if it floods 10 years from now? We need added insurance because of it. And
Mhm.
depending on, because I think a lot about like, you've got, here we are in Texas, you've got Galveston, Tiki Island, all of that,
Houston.
even Houston, even parts of Houston, and even, believe it or not, parts of Georgetown
Mhm.
are in that 100-year floodplain. And depending on how close you are, I mean, some of these flood insurances are pretty pricey. So, all of a sudden you're buying a home and you're busting my balls about your rate. And, you're so concerned about what your interest rate is and how much you're going to pay monthly. And finally we come to terms and, you're looking at everything and all of a sudden, boom, we find out now you have this flood insurance for like $200 a month.
Mhm.
And you're not happy about that because your payment just shot up $200 a month because of flood. And you're
Yeah.
fighting me and being like, oh, it hasn't flooded in 90 years. And I'm like, well, it did flood. Like, this is
Yeah.
where we're at. So I run into that all the time. But then what I also run into that is very, very funny is sometimes we find these like 100-year floodplains where you're like right on the outside of it. And everybody bickers and fights about like, we're not in a floodplain. Yes, we are in the floodplain. And we just go back and forth. And then I go behind everybody's back and I call and I'm like, hey, here's the address of the property. What would it cost to insure this place for flood? And they're like, oh, we'll just add it on as a rider for like $200 a year.
Mhm.
And then everybody, meanwhile, is like arguing in the room. And I'm like, hey, y'all, it's going to be $15 extra a month for this flood insurance. And they're like, oh, well, we'll just do that.
We'll just add it on. Yeah.
Right. Like, everybody's like ready to tear each other apart over the flood. So, yeah, that's flood. But the question, moving on,
Uh-huh.
that I have two for you. The first one is, in your business right now, what do you feel like is your biggest obstacle that's holding you back?
Myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that sounds very cliche.
It is. What about yourself, though?
Damn. So, but yeah, what about myself is I don't think and I've said this, Vincent knows I've said this so many times, and I said that I'm not putting myself out there the way I actually am. There's an inch that I've been doing this for years.
Mhm.
And I think there's working in corporate before there was a fear of being who I am. And also realize I take initiative. I'm a go-getter. I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler.
Right.
But when I worked in corporate, they slapped that down real fast. They said this is a corporate ladder. You have to talk to this person. So parts of my personality and my richness and fabulousness, I held it back a lot. And then I got in this business wanting to be very knowledgeable and smart, but kind of putting my personality on the back burner. Not personality, but everything that's about me. And
Mhm.
I think, honestly, the way I accomplish things have been always because of me, of my personality, of how I do things and how I navigate. And the way I've not gotten to the point where I want to be is because of that one reason. And there's something in the aha moment that happened a few weeks ago or a month ago or something. I said, wait, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Why am I doing that? That's not helping me at all. And when I do display that, people like that. Well, it's not that people like it. I like myself that way.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
I'm
people.
confident.
Yeah, exactly. People like
Yeah.
when people like themselves.
Yeah. And I get received better. Business happens differently and better. So that is an obstacle. Other than that, no bitch gets in my way.
Yeah. No, I like that.
I'm very confident that I never have another obstacle outside of myself. That people are not my problems. They're their own problems. Nothing gets in my way.
I love it.
Damn, that was a boss. I sound kind of like quote that.
Now you got to live it. I will quote
Mark
it. Quote
Twain
it. We'll
who?
turn it. We'll turn it
Mark
into. We'll turn
Haverty
it
over
into.
here.
We'll turn it into a clip. So every week that I have guests on, I ask one
like, what would you do or what if question before we wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
And this week, you ever been to a restaurant or work in a restaurant where they've got like the gun, where like you can like push one button for water, the other one's like
Yeah,
Coke,
yeah,
and
the fountain
the fountain, yeah,
drink thingy.
and it's all on like one gun.
Mm-hmm.
If you had that on your index finger, and you could spray 3 liquids, what would it be?
My mind, I went to one liquid, and I'm like, I don't
No,
think I
no, no.
can
Let
say
me
that.
let me give you mine because I've changed mine because people have had some really good answers,
Yeah.
and I almost don't
I'm
want
not
to tell
gonna
you.
say the one I thought of immediately.
I almost
Sorry,
don't want to
babe.
give you the answer because I feel like I've concocted like some of the best ones. So it would be, for me, number 1. I couldn't believe when someone said this. I was like, that's fucking genius. Gasoline.
Oh, okay.
Because then I just fill up my car
Yeah,
whenever I
that's
want.
true.
Like you have an unlimited supply. Gasoline, number 1. Coffee, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3 for me, it's a toss-up. But I decided I'm a big beer drinker.
Right.
So it would be beer for me. But I wanted to say whiskey, but I feel like that could be troublesome.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be my 3 liquids would be gasoline, coffee, and beer.
Okay. What my 3 would be?
Yeah.
Oil.
Okay. What kind of oil? Olive oil?
Oil
Like-
from the ground.
Oh, okay. Like crude
Petroleum.
oil.
Yeah, crude oil.
oil.
Yeah.
All right.
Because that will be
I
extremely
see where your
wealthy.
head's going.
Purified water,
Okay.
because that's just as expensive.
That's responsible.
Obviously. Yeah. And wine.
Wine. What kind of wine?
Red grape, not red. Red wine comes from purple grapes. Yeah.
Yes.
Red wine.
Red wine. Do you have a particular red wine you enjoy?
We're big wine drinkers, so we do like a cab.
Okay.
We do like a blend. We have a favorite winery. Well, we have a few. Our mothers live close to Napa Valley in
Mhm.
California, and they take us to all the best wineries.
I've never been.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but you should go with my mother-in-laws because they will take you to the best ones.
Okay, good to know.
So I would have one because I feel like that, but it will have to be very good, established wine. Wanderlust, of course, they have that fountain thing, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, there's no wrong answer here.
so but oil because I would have abundance of wealth.
That would make you money. You could
and-
sell gas too.
Yeah, but oil has more functionality.
Fair enough.
And diversity and
Petroleum
where you
oil.
Put it. Yeah.
Got it.
So you have the gas. You can do so much with it.
Yeah, that's true.
And water, it's abundant, and now it's expensive.
You could fill up Lake Travis.
Yeah, yeah, you can. I could do a lot when I have that
You
water.
could.
I'm like, what do you want?
Exactly.
You know, and it's purified. With
Exactly.
But the wine, I think it will just solve everybody's problems.
I get it.
Jesus had one. He was a fabulous guy.
Well, he turned
What the-
water into
that-
wine.
that-
If you were Jesus, you wouldn't need water. You wouldn't need wine. You could just turn the water into wine and get another one to.
Jesus was just fabulous in so many ways.
Right?
I just recently started thinking, and I probably don't think that's appropriate to say. I was like, yeah, Jesus was a loving person, never had a girlfriend, but I was like, maybe he was,
It's
you know,
totally
'cause
possible.
look at his hair. Like, nobody in the Bible had hair like that. And I'm like, nah, he was a little fabulous, and he was cute.
He was a good-looking dude by every picture
mean,
I've
I-
seen. I'd take his hairline.
I'll take him. You know, he gets abundant wine, so that's the man for you. But thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Listen, before we finish up, I
Uh-huh.
tell everybody, take a peek into the camera, tell us who you are, what you do, and anything else that anybody needs to know. Don't look at me because sometimes
Okay.
people look back at me because I'm going to
Mhm.
run it as a clip. So do your thing, man.
My name is Mark Haverty, and I basically am a realtor here in Austin, Texas. I do commercial and residential. So whatever floats your boat, hit me up. Also, if you just want to have a chat and have a drink with someone just to get to know me better, I'm your guy. I'm pretty heavy in the network here, so just give me a ring or a call or email, one of those.
Love it. Well, we'll
Yeah.
get your information out there, man, and we got to have you on again. This was
Of
fun.
course, yeah. That was fast.
Right?
That was pretty fast.